Hello, hello. We are here. It's
We are
Journeys
here,
again.
and I was trying to tag a few people, but we're good. Yes, we're here, and I'm really excited about this guest,
Yeah, I was.
especially this
Yes.
month because of Women's
hmm
History Month. She's a
So yeah,
phenomenal.
tell people about the theme that we have that you
So
came up with.
our theme for our theme for this season with Journeys is letting go so we can move forward, letting go of
Right.
things, and also secondary is how sometimes we have to let go of good stuff too in order to make room for new stuff.
Exactly.
And our guest today she's fantastic. She's intelligent, she's beautiful, she's witty,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind, just feminist, activist, life
Strong,
coach.
tenacious,
Yes,
honest, very honest.
put a bow on her. There you go. There, like just
hmm
all the whole package. So I'm really excited to talk to her and to share her with our guests because she has a lot of stories. I mean, I don't know if an hour is enough for her.
It's definitely not enough for her. So, but we're going to encourage everyone to go and follow her online. How did you
Yes.
come across her? What is
Yes.
the beginning story here?
So, usually I say TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and I did connect to her through TikTok, but I actually saw her first on Instagram and started following her on my
Mm-hmm.
personal page. And then I was just kind of hooked. And then one day I was like, I wonder if she's on TikTok. And then I went on TikTok and I was like, there was this whole story with, I'll let her tell you more, but there's a whole story how she uh, kind of, well, hit on, I don't know what the language is of the day, but she paid a compliment and kind of tried to strike up a conversation with a gentleman in a parking lot. And it ended up that he was gay, but they did this whole search for each other. He was looking for her on TikTok and
Mm-hmm.
to thank her about how that made him feel and everything. And that's gone viral. They've been on all kinds of, like, if you search it online, it's tons of stuff. But
It's
that got me
beautiful.
hooked because I wanted to
Yeah.
see if they met up.
You got, it's like a
And,
saga that you have to know. It's like a rom-com
I need to know
saga
the
that you have
ending.
to, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. And they did actually hook up, but I'll let her tell you that whole story. If she chooses to. If not, you can catch it online. But that was on TikTok. And then I just kind of got hooked and I was like, yeah, we need to have her on as a guest.
Yeah. And then you put together a little intro package. Do you want us to show the video?
Yeah, go ahead.
All
It's
right.
actually one of her.
Mr. Wright stumbles upon this, I want y'all to know exactly who I am. I graduated with my master's in classical Chinese medicine, a background in naturopathic medicine. I'm a certified trauma-informed life coach. I really love working on trauma and relationships and self-love, self-worth, self-respect. And right now I'm just like working to save money so that I can take 2 months off, study for my boards, and get my license. What my dream to do with that is to be on tour with musicians and help them stay healthy on the road. But here I am at 35, now I'm freaking out because I want to have like 5 kids, and I know that time is ticking. I wrote a book about the last big breakup I had called Beauty in the Breakup, and I've had to work through a lot of my own BS. And from a pretty broken home, I had a rough upbringing, but I have turned so much of my life around from where I've been, and anything I can do to help people do the same really means the most to me. I think life is precious. It's here and then it's gone, so like really cherish everything.
If you were the girl that I talked to in the parking lot of a New Seasons grocery store in the Northwest District of Portland last night, I need you to know that you like absolutely made my evening. You rolled down her window and was like, "Hey, are you single?" And I was just like, "What?" Anyway, I was like sadly, yes, I am. Also like very gay though. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, of course, gay." Like, first of all, props to you because like it takes fucking guts to just like roll up on someone and just like, be like, "Hey, like, I think you're attractive. Are you single?" Like that takes guts. I don't have that in me. I don't got that dog in me. If I do got that dog, it's like a chihuahua and it's scared of everything. No, she was genuinely very attractive. I just unfortunately really like men. you just seem super fucking cool. Also, if you do see this by some chance and you want to get like friend coffee, I would actually like love to kick it and hang out. Like, also zero pressure because like I am a strange man on the internet.
I was hooked.
Okay,
man.
let's bring her up. We gotta bring her up. That was incredible. Oh
That
my
was
gosh.
amazing.
I loved it.
Hi.
I loved
Nice to
it.
meet you both. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I was just smiling ear to ear the whole time. That was so funny. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is Tifanie Mayberry. She's our guest tonight. I don't even know where to begin. She's just amazing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, since that's the end of what they just saw, and then from there we can move wherever you'd like next.
Sure. So I was in a parking lot, and I've just been, like I was saying, I'm 35, I'm single, I'm ready to mingle. I've been like, my eyes have been open more than ever before because TikTok, and I really want to have a family. I want to have kids. And I saw this guy pull up, and I'm an Uber driver temporarily. Long story short, it's a temporary gig because I don't have a car. I needed a car. So this meets my job needs and car needs temporarily before I start studying. So I was like eating my girl dinner, which was just like olives and, some cured meat. And I saw him and he pulled up and I was like, ooh, he's so good looking. And then he goes into the store and I'm like, do I say hi? Do I introduce myself? And I'm like, of course you do. And so he came out and I'm like just finishing up. I think I'd finished up a few things, threw the trash away, and I wasn't waiting just for him. I was waiting for my next ride to come through. And I rolled down my window and I was just like, I have to do it. I have to do the thing where I just ask if he's single. And so when I roll down the window, I'm like, hey, this car. And I was like, real weird question, but I just want to know, are you single? And he's like, oh my God, yes, I'm very single, but I'm also very gay. And I was like, oh my God, just like he was saying. And it was just like one of those really sweet moments. And like, as we parted ways, I felt that feeling too of like, man, I wish we would have like connected and exchanged information. And then lo and behold, I was on my Instagram and I shared the story in my stories, and I was in a tender place. So I think I just like shared it, and I don't even think I kept it up for the full 24 hours because I was like, is this embarrassing a little bit? Like part of me was actually a little embarrassed. Someone asked me before and I was like, no, but then I thought about it and was like, oh, well, I deleted it before 24 hours. And sometimes I just moderate my stories. I have a lot to say. But one of my followers, like a month and a half later, was like, Tifanie, I feel so responsible for sharing this with you. It's a TikTok. I'm pretty sure this guy's talking about you. And I was like, I'm like, whatever could that be? I had no idea. And the fact that they even saw it was even a slim chance because I didn't even.
That's incredible.
I know. I wish I would have like kept it so I knew what I said in it, because I was like, oh my God, I just hit on this guy and he was gay, and it was so funny. And sometimes you got to shoot your shot and like it doesn't always work out, but you build confidence. Da, 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 da. And then lo and behold, I saw it and I started watching it in this parking lot that I'm in right now. And I started crying and I was like, oh, he needs to see this. Sometimes even on the internet, it becomes a small world. I completely agree, especially TikTok. And I started crying and I was like, I need to stitch this. He needs to see this like emotion that I'm having. And I knew it would go a little viral, to be honest, because his reaching out to me video already had 1 million hits. So I was like, there's a potential for virality. I've gone viral several times throughout my content creation career. So I was like, it could happen. But I also just was genuinely doing it for him to see my reaction, because it meant a lot to me that he did that. And it was like touching my heart. And I think that really came through, and it touched a lot of folks who watched it. So that's kind of the story. Since then, we have connected online. We haven't connected in person yet. We both have really hectic schedules, and I'm not even sure if he lives around here anymore. I most recently took 40 days I'm in the middle of it, 40 days away from social media, just for my own cleansing purposes. But that type of attention on social media can be a lot for some people, and he expressed that it was a lot for him. And so I imagine like there's just needing to be some time and grace for that. I come from a family of Hollywood entertainers. I'm fourth generation. And so I'm kind of used to these things that happen. My brother's also famous. He was on a show called The Hills. So we literally used to have paparazzi sleeping outside our house. So to blow up on TikTok is like sweet and it's awesome, but I've been exposed to a lot. And so I think he's been in the like, okay, this is a lot. Let's just take our time and, you know, make it happen when it feels right. So that's kind of where things have left off with that.
He just has such an energy about him too. It's almost like you probably felt it, even just his smile when he first comes on. He's like apprehensive before he speaks almost, and then he gets this big smile, and then he starts talking, and then it just flows. But yeah, I'm so glad you guys connected, because when I saw that video from him, I was like, oh, now I'm invested, and I gotta watch. But I also, he was just so sincere, you know, like, and I love when he said, or not, because I am a strange man online, right? I was like, that's so awesome, because we don't even always get that respect in person, face to face, you know?
Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways, we both did something for another in a way that's like very wholesome and maybe unconventional, but authentic. And I think that's what really landed for people is just after everything we've been through over the past few years, I think people are really craving genuine, authentic connection that is just heart-filled.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
We're both kind of those people. I don't know him, but I can just tell from the way that he expressed himself. I was just like, you're my people, you know?
Yeah, you can tell he's genuine. There's an energy he gives off. I just feel that when I see somebody, and I don't know, some people you just know they're great people. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know you studied Chinese medicine, holistic healing, trauma therapy, life coach.
So,
Yeah, lay it on us.
yeah, of course. So I'm a trauma-informed life coach. I just graduated with my master's in classical Chinese medicine, currently studying for my boards to get my license in acupuncture, background in naturopathic medicine, and a history of spiritually advising, and an ex-Hollywood hairdresser that's retired now after 18 years of doing that. So I've had a lot of experiences when it comes to life, growing up in Hollywood and being exposed to so many different things. I have a lot of insights that I've been able to pull from my life experience and my education, and I package it all together to serve people to the highest level so that they can become fully expressed and live the life that they were meant to and become their own best source of wisdom and healing in many ways, while also welcoming in the care, support, and team that they need as they need it. But it's just there's a lot of big things I'm passionate about, but generally right now, there's a few different threads that have been continual. And I think with my background in Fem Studies at UC Santa Cruz, I definitely have a passion for supporting the global wounded feminine, which is a term that I've kind of created, but it's probably used elsewhere, which is just saying collectively, I think as a whole, the feminine has been wounded for some time, and there's many reasons I think that. I wrote about it in my book as well. But there's that. And then I also feel very called to supporting musicians on the road to keep them holistically healthy with sustainable options rather than historical, not so sustainable options that have existed for a while that don't end up as well. So I have lots of different passions. I have an interesting educational background and experiential background. And my hopes are to put it all together to really create the highest level of shift on this planet while I'm here. And I think really high level. So anything I can do to support the shift that I see would support greater healing for the greater whole is really what I feel my life's dedicated to at this point in my life.
Yeah, and I love how you're dedicated to supporting artists as well. Like, obviously, we know, and you know, because you're integrated into the Hollywood lifestyle with your brother and family, we know that artists are a particular demographic that they have, you know, they're very creative, they're very sensitive, and they can have very high pressure put on them, exerted from all around, you know, and you can see addiction and there's all mental health struggles, things like that. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't really care about, you know, musicians or actors as like a special class, but they do have unique challenges, and celebrities themselves have unique pressures and challenges. So you saying, look, I would like to serve that demographic and even go on the road, like think of how many musicians like a Jimi Hendrix or a Kurt Cobain or a Janis Joplin did not even make it to 30 because of that road lifestyle. If they had had someone like you, for example, what would you be offering to a band or a musician on the road that could help them overcome these hurdles?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny you mentioned Kurt Cobain, because in my medical school application letter, I forget what the actual name of it was called, but I wrote about Kurt Cobain and what I would have done
Wow.
to help him deal with his stomach pain, which is what the issue was. And he was taking opiates in order to numb the pain. And I'm there's a lot going on in my mind as I think about that, from naturopathic side, the Chinese medicine side. But in Chinese medicine, there's a lot to digest there. If you're having stomach issues, there's also usually something in life that you're having trouble digesting. So what in life is really being difficult for you to digest? Usually unmet needs of the childhood and the trauma there within, and the adapting mechanisms that we developed in order to survive those circumstances. And so now what I would say compared to that entry level letter are a lot different. But in that letter, I was like, we would test his gut flora and, see how he's doing. Does he need probiotics? Because 400 times more serotonin is produced in the stomach than it is in the mind. And we've been approaching it from this pharmaceutical approach that is really not focusing on a really large aspect of someone's healing. And so looking at the body as a whole and seeing what's going on that is causing the root of this issue, which is really something that I'm passionate about, is like, what created the circumstances for this condition to express itself? So if I were today, let's say I'm with Kurt Cobain, he's in his mid-20s, the stomach thing is becoming an issue. Immediately, I'm going to address his diet, see what's going on, what's being inflammatory. If there's addictive patterns and behaviors, one thing I'm clear about at this point in my journey is I'm not here to save anyone or convince anyone to do things that they don't want to. David Williams says around the time he left us, they had just really started diagnosing younger people with Crohn's disease. Yeah. And so that's, I would go into, and David Williams says I was diagnosed pretty close to that time at age 15. I was also attempted to be diagnosed, an aside, with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. And where I'm at in my journey is I don't really give in to diagnoses the way that Western medical system and model does. So I might be a little radical for some people, and I'm fully aware of that. Another aside, I lost my mom to acute polydrug intoxication when I was 23 years old, and she was dying most of my life. And it was at the hands of Western medicine because they just kept giving her medication when there were so many other things that could have been done. So I'm really passionate about helping people heal because I've been the daughter of someone that suffered from not having the care and support they need. So getting clear.
Can you state, I'm sorry, can you state that again? Because I had written it down, but I can't find it. Okay, so I worked as a nurse in the ER, but I had never heard that term put all together like that you used for your mom, how she passed away. Can you say that again and explain what that means to people?
Absolutely. Acute polydrug intoxication, secondary to heart failure, which means there were too many pharmaceuticals in her system that caused her heart to give up. And essentially it was probably the morphine that she was on. So it got pretty progressive towards the end. At the end, she was so sick that she sneezed and broke 2 vertebrae in her back because everything had drawn out the life force from her spine. So I'm just so like passionate about it, and I respect everyone's journey and path to healing. And there are just certain things that I've seen that historically and anecdotally in my 7 years in clinic that just continually seem to exacerbate issues rather than heal. And I'm just on the healing path for people. So at the end of the day, if Kurt was like, yes, I'm ready to let go of any of the addictions, then I'm going to get to the root of the trauma that caused those conditions, do the dietary shifts. And like myself, someone that also had Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, they wanted to put me on some medications for the rest of my life that were quite expensive. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I healed myself from it in something that they told me was not healable. And that started a lot of skepticism within my own experience, because I was just in my young 20s when it happened, which is pretty young. And there was some healing crises. I had a diverticulitis attack. I know what it's like to really experience some things that usually you don't experience until older age. But at the end of the day, creating the conditions for healing to occur is really a lot more simple than I think we've made it out to be. And if we go back to nutrition, supplementing anything we're not getting from our nutrition, assessing the pulse and the tongue, like seeing what the body is expressing and doing qualitative analysis versus quantitative analysis. So rather than making people numbers, looking at the qualities through which their vitality is being expressed, you're able to really see the soul and the spirit flourish, or where it's excessive, deficient, etc. And that feels a lot more true to my calling personally.
Yeah, you're big on, like, even in the book you mentioned several times to listen to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that, just I think everybody's idea of listening to your body is different. Like some people it's full on meditation, some people it's physically, what am I feeling right now? Or mentally, what am I feeling right now?
Right.
But when you say it in regards to your thought process in healing, what does it mean to you?
Mm-hmm. So usually when I'm saying listen to the body, it's what are your somatic cues? Somatic meaning what are the body's, rhythms, changes, fluctuations, sensations that are shifting within your body as you think about something, or as you just get clear with dropping in. So for me, it's a hand over the heart, hand over the belly, eyes closed, and usually going into a breathing exercise that can move you from sympathetic to parasympathetic, so getting you to just regulate your nervous system. And then feeling, is there any tension in the body? How is your heart doing? Is it fluttering? Is it racing? Are your palms sweaty? Are you feeling heat rise upward? Do you have a headache? Are your fingers tingling? What is going on that your body is telling you something is moving? Like, what are the signs that you're feeling you're alive right now? And with that, the next part I usually go to, and this is usually in the coaching space or in acupuncture, is what are the underlying feelings or emotions that are tied to those, so that you can become aware of what you're experiencing. And these become really important when you're exploring triggers, because a lot of us have triggers and we don't realize what the first signs of our triggers are. It might be like, oh my God, I'm talking really fast and I start to get really, well, what's going on? Let's, regulate the nervous system, drop in. What made you feel like you had to speed up? Oh, well, I was really nervous and I felt like I had a lot to say and I really wanted to be heard, because when I was younger, I was never heard. And if I didn't say it quick, then, my mom would get really upset. Like, there's so many stories and energetic storages in our body that hold on to these stories and narratives that we've held on to for so long, that sometimes it's like an eggshell. And when people say walking on eggshells, where people are always just like a little crack away from opening it back up. And if you don't know what those are for yourself, you become vulnerable to being reactive, to being offended, to becoming hurt much more easily than the person who's aware of some of those somatic cues, the underlying emotions and feelings that are within those spaces, and then understanding the root of where those came from. So there's, I would say, 3 parts to it: the somatic cues, what your body's telling you, moving into what the feelings or emotions are, and then what are the stories that are tied to those. So that's usually what I mean by feel into your body and what's going on there.
Well, MM sent me, because she has your book, she read your book, and she sent me these 2 pages that she wanted me to it's about, you're talking about, you have this boyfriend and then your body sort of stops responding to him sexually, right?
Yep.
And no, but this is all about what you're saying right now, I think. And I have some questions for you. And like, in that scenario,
when I read that, Renee, I was like, oh, I got to send this to Renee.
yeah, this is right up my
an
alley.
open
Like,
conversation that we would have without batting an eye. Like, we
I
would
have
not
to talk to you about this because I'm so passionate. knows me, and like, I am just so passionate about this because you're talking about somatic clues. You're talking about your body and listening to someone's body with mental health. We talked about Kurt Cobain with addiction, with childhood problems. Now we're talking about sexuality. We're talking about the mind being connected to the gut, the mind being connected to the genitals, to your hormones, to everything. So in this scenario, for 6 months, you're with your boyfriend at the last 6 months, and you stop literally like feeling turned on around him. You think that there's something wrong with you, with your body. Then you meet this Mr. Hot Body in the gym. And you get, and you start having your body starts sending you cues. You go to your boyfriend and say, hey, my body is letting me know that I have needs outside this relationship. Holy shit. That is the answer. Like, that is so beautiful because you're being honest with yourself. You're not blaming your body. You are standing by your body. And you even say in the book that later on, now at the age that you are, you look back then and you say, oh, I'm so sorry that I judged my body. If your body is sending you cues that maybe this is not the right dynamic for you. And we need to be honest with ourselves, right? Like, isn't that what like the man that you met in the parking lot who turned out to be gay and all of that? Like, what we would never say to him, oh, you shouldn't be gay. Your body shouldn't feel those. We wouldn't say that to him. So why do we say it to ourselves? Why
we're pretty hard on ourselves
when our body is saying you shouldn't be eating this, or you shouldn't be in this relationship anymore? So talk us through that a little bit about body shame and standing up for your body, standing up for your needs.
Yeah, I think it's so important that you mention that, because I mention it in the book as well, but for the last 5,000 years, I believe that the feminine has been suppressed in a way because until 1974, we didn't have the legal and financial rights that our masculine counterparts have had without thought. And that what I'm speaking to is getting credit cards. And so when we were able to finally gain our own powers, we were able to step into, or in our own rights, we were able to step into the power of ourselves. But before that, what we really had to do was get our basic survival needs met, which meant safety, security, shelter, food, warmth. And we depended on masculine counterparts historically to get those needs met. But what that meant is that whatever the cost was, we had to do that in order to make sure we were going to be okay. But what that also does is it allows us to fall into what I call self-worth compromising traps. And I have a full course about healing and magnetizing healthy relationships from healing and getting clear and whole within ourselves. But we go into these self-worth compromising traps that are like people pleasing, ignoring red flags, codependency, things like that. And they override our intuition. And so until you realize what those self-worth compromising traps are, you start to understand where they come from and start to do the work around that. I see a lot of women that struggle with trusting their intuition because we have been societally trained to deny it. And I mean, that we're given so many stories in media and families and culture and religion that tell us to just be shameful. And that's actually contradicts the basis of the work that I do. Is in the book, you'll see it's a common thread as well, is I don't want you to have shame, blame, or guilt, because nothing heals in those spaces. So when your body is telling you something, that's your intuition speaking. And if it's saying something, trusting that part of you and really giving it whatever it is asking for in a way that feels expansive, because we also get these feelings that can come from a place of fear that are not true. So there is a difference there. But being able to see the things that like light us up, make us feel expansive, make us feel happy, make us feel excited. And then there are things that are, going to make us feel like we're caving in on ourselves, and lots of fear and lots of like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling panicked. Like those are also cues, but they need a little bit more dissecting to understand. So ultimately, I think that we've been conditioned to deny our intuition, especially historically, even things like hysteria or gaslighting. Those who aren't familiar with why it's called gaslighting, it refers back to a time period when gas lamps were used, and a method of putting your wife in the loony bin was to dim the lamp so that it would flicker. And the wife would say, "Oh, honey, is the gas lamp flickering?" You'd be like, "No, honey, you must be delusional or hysteric or whatever it was." So we've literally been terrified of trusting our intuition at the fear that it might mean that we're crazy, because if we were crazy, historically, this meant danger for us. So anything that doesn't make logical sense in the patriarchal sense has really been almost demonized. And that's also a big cornerstone of the work that I do. My last post before the social media on TikTok was like, what are my red flags? Because all of these terms that we utilize to like demonize and imprison women are really harmful to our psyche, and diminish and try to suppress that really divine, intelligent, intuitive, feminine wisdom that is trying to grow and heal and flourish and needs to be supported. So I'm super passionate about helping people, women and men, actually understand, honor, and nurturing. I like to help them understand how to understand, nurture, and honor like that intuitive feminine wisdom, which is in all of us. But I would say that those who were estrogen brewed and born as female, I would say there's a slightly greater balance in them for tapping into that wisdom.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
People realize, I say this sometimes quite a bit to people, that my mom didn't have her own checking account. She didn't have her own credit card. There was only one car in the yard. My dad did all the driving, until, then years passed, we get older and things started to change. But that's like one generation. And now you look at my granddaughters and they have less rights than I have or had, And I'm like, how are we going?
Yeah.
We can't go backwards, We need to keep going forward. It's scary. It's scary. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. The feminine has been, and we're taught not only shame, but we're taught if we have any sort of feelings, whether it be sexual or attractive or, attraction, or it, really just about any feeling related to compatibility or relationship. God forbid you even think about anything like that.
Yeah.
Our whole life is spent. Okay, Melissa, that sweater shows a lot of your neck. Oh, I'm sorry. What do we say? We say,
it
sorry.
comes from the shame. Like, all of this shame and the systemic, the patriarchy, and sort of the way that we are groomed to hate and distrust our bodies, and to be so responsible for all of that, and then to not stand by ourselves, like, and to not advocate for our needs. I mean, once upon a time, men or medical professionals didn't even really understand the female the orgasm, or even think that was important, or that females could have sexual desires that were important to them. And
but
so
we weren't supposed to. We're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to feel those things. It's all about the man. It's all about, I mean, they don't even, know really, like medical professionals were polled recently from Harvard, and they still kind of
Yeah.
didn't know about the clitoris. They kind of don't understand the female orgasm. But it behooves all of society and all of humanity to understand half of humanity. And I'm not really sure, but
Yeah.
women have been at war with themselves. And so I love what Em was just saying there. Like, I also want to put it on, I want to put it on ourselves, but also to be our sister's keeper in one way, which is that if you're in a committed monogamous relationship that's sexual and romantic with someone, and you can tell that that person is having desires, needs, they could be physical, medical, sexual, sensual, anything, and you can figure out that maybe you're not able to meet those needs, why are you not checking in with them and giving them some sort of support to let them know that it's not the end of the world if they were to go in a different direction? I don't know why we can't support one another, because marriages are lasting longer and longer. We're living longer and longer. Some people are together 65 years and they're happy and fulfilled every day. But some people aren't, but they stay because financially, or because of the kids, or because, oh, God forbid, they've evolved and want to have something different. Why is it the end of the world? You know, in Iceland, they've solved this. In Iceland,
Yeah.
you know, and they're happy, and they have a communal approach, and it's not the end of the world if someone else wants to have a relationship with you. You listen to your bodily cues, and we change as we evolve.
This is the perfect segue for her to talk about her book, because she talks about that in her book, and how it doesn't necessarily mean just because your relationship isn't working that there's anything wrong with either one of you. It just means maybe you're just not compatible, or
Right.
maybe you've changed, or one person has changed. Can you tell us a little bit about the book,
I
Tiffany?
would
I'm
love
sorry,
to.
I assumed that you might.
Oh, Tiff is totally cool. I didn't even think twice about it. Yeah, so the book, it's called Beauty in the Breakup, Shifting the Culture of Breakups. And it's all about, we've historically made breakups out to be such this like awful thing. But I think we've all been conditioned and programmed to believe so, because it doesn't have to be awful that your journey is coming to an end. It's kind of like when you're done living somewhere and you're like, I'm ready for something new. Like, I've lived this place. It's been really beautiful. I grew so much
Yeah.
here. I learned so much. But now, I'm realizing, like, I've been in Portland 8 years. Maybe I'll stay here, maybe I won't. But I'm like, I do miss places that are a little bit more sunny. And it's not now where I'm at now mentally. Like, I actually really love Portland again because of Ubering, which was a whole story of its own. But I'm like, I actually really love sun, and I didn't realize how much I missed the sun, but now that I have not had it, I'm really wanting the sun. And the relationships are just like that. And there's so many different types of relationships we can have that I refer to in the book. But journey mates is one of those really big ones where it's just like we had a journey together, and then it comes to an end, and then we move forward. And in the book, I mention and dedicate, thank you very much. I mentioned my ex Rex, and he was the inspiration for this book because we had a breakup that was so beautiful and so loving and so kind. And I created a full course on it just because I was like, other people need to know this process just in case they're wanting to have a conscious uncoupling or conscious relationship completion in a way that truly honors the place and the gifts that this person added to your life. And we went through that process ourselves clunkily, but we did it. And I ended up loving him more through the process after than I did in the relationship because of the way he showed up with dignity, love, and respect and kindness. And that was another time in my life that if you go on my Instagram and go back to that relationship, that also went viral because people were just mind blown. I had a reel where he's tucking me into bed, and I said, when you break up with your boyfriend, but he still tucks you in because you're really sick or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's just him tucking me in because we'd just broken up a few days prior. I got really sick, lungs hold grief. So I was obviously in a grieving period, but we still loved each other. It was just, we realized like we're not good for each other. We're not meant to be with each other long haul. You're a good person. I'm a good person. We've had a great time. There's definitely been, our hiccups and challenges. But people, that hit, I think, like 2 million views. And people were just so all over the board with that one. A lot more positive responses with the me hitting on a gay guy at New Season's parking lot. But this one touched a sore spot for a lot of people, which is like, oh, like all these guys were attacking him. What a simp. Oh, you know this. Oh, and then saying things towards me. Oh, you know, she's already sleeping with other guys. Oh, you know, she's doing this. And then there was a bunch more people that were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I didn't even think that we could just be loving and end with love and be able to move forward in a way that didn't make us feel so absolutely rotten after the way we've historically seen relationships ending as being. And in that way, we both set each other up for something better after the relationship because we didn't have all this extra baggage from the relationship that we had to heal from. We did that healing together, again, as partners till the end. So it was just the most beautiful, magnificent process. So this book, which I also have a copy with right here, is The Beauty and the Breakup, Shifting the Culture of Breakups. But
I got mine on Amazon.
yes, that's the only place you can get it right now. Thank you very much. And this is like the philosophy and the mindset of how I got to that point where I was like, okay, like I have enough evidence and information that's showing me it's time to part ways. And it was really challenging. We both didn't want to do it, but these were all of the things that coaches shared with me that allowed me to make the decisions I had to make. And at the end of it, like, I think a big thing that I'm bringing to light is in this wanting to help heal the global wounded feminine. All of these things that have historically been really shameful, I'm kind of pivoting it and being like, let me show you how proud I am to like go through my breakup. Let me show you all of my red flags as a self-love soul coach that helps people, you know, live their happiest lives. I still have red flags. What do red flags mean? Oh, actually, they're just indicators that your inner child's probably experiencing some triggers that need to be addressed. And it's like, let's start destigmatizing all of these conversations that have been traditionally used to insult us. And let's, you know, turn it on its head and being like, this is me, you know, this is where I'm at. I'm a human. Because the more we can do that, it disempowers any hold that had over us. And so I'm really passionate about just being like the resistance.
I can tell. I love it. I like that you call it relationship completion, because so often we have relationships, whatever the relationship is, and then something's not working, or it just feels like you said, like we're just kind of reached our end. There's no specifics. It's just, but by calling it the relationship completion, it doesn't invalidate that entire journey. And a lot of times when people break up, they focus so much on those last few weeks, days, months when they were bitter and angry or whatever the situation might be. And then, oh, the rest of that time that, and I understand some relationships are abusive or narcissists or whatever. Like, we get that. There are some relationships that are just, this isn't going to work. But but in a decent, you know, good, like you said, I really like that. And it goes well with what we're talking about on Journeys, which is letting go. That's our season motto, because like you said, neither one of you really wanted to let go, but you knew that that's where your path was going and you needed to move forward. That's awesome.
And the other part I want to bring up is that we made a ceremony of saying goodbye. And I also just want to mention this other thing that we like take as a normal thing in society, but we have a ceremony for birthdays, we have them for funerals, for graduations, for marriage, but we don't have any for breakups. And so that's like the process that I created, because I was just like, this also deserves a ceremony. Ceremonies are a time to, you know, acknowledge and honor and appreciate the parting of someone that you really cared about, you know? And so I just also wanted to add that little tidbit, because it's another perspective shift that I think is really helpful in changing the ways we approach things that historically we did another way.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I heard someone say once that duration does not necessarily equate quality of a relationship. And I think sometimes we get that. I think a lot of people stay in bad friendships. It's not just, and I have friends that I met, in preschool. And so I actually do have really long-term relationships in my life. But that said, if someone is in a long-term relationship and they're there, 50, 60 years just to sort of get that prize, but really it's not, the quality is not there. I mean, plus you can evolve, you can change. There's a married couple on TikTok, and they at some point realized that they had other interests and maybe their sexuality was evolving. And so now they're best friends and they still live together, but they're dating and they're each a member of the LGBTQ community and they support each other. Their relationship actually hasn't even been over. In fact, their relationship is stronger now. So also I would say be daring to change that relationship. Don't cling on to, like, if you marry someone and then at some point you realize sexually you're not compatible, don't just throw that out like it's not important for you. I don't care if you're 70 years old. It's important to you. Right? But you can still build on the parts of the relationship that do work. And there might be a really solid friendship there. There might be a really solid other type of, maybe even a colleagueship there. So it doesn't always have to be this binary system, I think. You don't have to give up on the entire person, but to be really, really honest about, okay, I don't feel this particular way for you anymore. And isn't it good that we evolve as human beings the longer we're alive? Isn't that really fantastic?
It would be so boring if we didn't.
Yeah, it would be really boring.
Now, I'm going to be honest. So David and I will be married 37 years come June.
Nice.
And as we've gotten older, I want to travel more and he wants to be home more. The only reason it works for us is because we love, trust, and respect each other. So he's like, oh, you want to go there? Go. Have fun. Who are you taking with you? You're taking one of your friends? What are you doing? Taking one of the kids? So we still do our own thing, but we do it together out of respect and love and trust. Like there's no...
And you monitor each other too. That goes back to what I was saying. A healthy relationship is two people who are full and complete individuals. And every day they choose to continue that relationship and are still excited about it and monitor the other. Like you care about David feeling fulfilled and David cares that you're getting all of your needs met. It just so happens that you don't have needs to like fall in love with another man, but you do want to travel and he doesn't. But that probably is a sacrifice for him, but because he cares about you. And that's what I'm getting back to is partners supporting one another to do the things that might be a sacrifice for them. And I'm always really concerned when I see people basically not caring. There are a lot of married couples.
I should say David was in the service, so he traveled all the time. He's been all over.
So he got it out of his system.
And so he now is like, I just want to sit on my porch in the rocking chair. He's got no desire to. He'll go once in a while, but for the most part, no. He's like,
he got it out of his system. He's good.
Yeah. There were two quotes in your book I wanted to bring up. One was, we often find partners who illuminate the aspects of ourselves that still need healing. I love that. That is so true.
Yeah.
So true. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to that?
I firmly believe that we're on a spiritual journey. And we're humans having a spiritual experience. And for me, my spiritual background, just for context, I'm Cherokee and Tuckahoe, so I practice the ways of the Lakota. I'm Christian, but in the non-denominational sense, and I'm very spiritual. And so I firmly believe that everyone we meet, especially if you listen to a book like Celestine Prophecy, like those, like, there's something here, like those feelings of like, I feel something here. I need to explore this. Those are divine appointments in my mind. And so if they're a divine appointment and you are seeing things in them, usually the things that we see outside of us are just really a reflection of our internal environment. So that's why after learning how to do all of these external modalities in Chinese medicine and naturopathic medicine, I really had the largest ahas when I started doing the inward healing, which is more on the coaching realm, because our internal environment affects everything that we see outside. a little exercise that everyone can do as they're watching this is look around and count everything you see that's red in the next 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. How many things were blue? You don't know because you were looking and you were programmed to look for the things that were red. And so there's so much that we miss when we are programmed to miss it. So if you want to see that something is all of these things that are awful, there's probably a lot inside you that also feels awful. And
that is really that's really eye-opening, because, and it gets me thinking, because when my son was younger, he had like sensory issues. He was on the spectrum, and one of the tests they did was say, similar to that, like, how many things did you see that were this color? Like, he had to go in this room and there were all these things all over the place. It was crazy. Sounds, noises, colors, just all kinds of movement. And I would be like, whatever they had asked me for. So I would be like, oh, there were 4 red cups or whatever. And my son, and they'd be like, oh, how many blue cups were there? And I'd be like, oh, my son would be like 3. And how many orange cups? And he'd be like 2. Like, he saw each individual thing, no matter what he was asked to look for. He had it down. So that's that's interesting.
There's a lot to be seen. There's a lot to be seen. And I think if we approach relationships in that way, it really takes back some of the ownership and the power for us, because I think historically, in the context of breakups, there's a real big knee-jerk reaction to be like, they did all of these things. I'm innocent and perfect. So it was all them. And, I just got unlucky. And I don't think that's the reality. I think the reality is that, if we're in a situation, even if it's with someone that's narcissistic, there was a part of us that was permitting it because we believed that was the level of love we deserved. And we didn't believe that we could get treated any other way than how they were treating us, because we had foundational beliefs that confirmed this is as good as it will ever get. This is all I'm worthy of receiving. And so you really have to get to the root of those issues of like, oh my goodness, like, when did I start thinking these things? What does that inner child really need from me right now? And how do I get to nurture that relationship rather than blaming my partner? Because it might be that that person's not compatible for you, but you'll keep attracting that if you don't realize the places in which you are also complicit in the shared reality that you co-create together. And in that way, I see that all relationships are a reflection of us. Even if it's your cat, even if it's your child, even if it's your partner, your parents, we mirror each other. And it's like, for me, I know when I'm not doing well, I have 2 cats at home and they'll just start acting crazy. And I'll just be like, oh my God, why are you like this? But when I'm regulated, when I'm like, right now, I'm on Lent, I'm not doing any substances that, shift my internal state. They've been really sweet and loving and calm and tender. And it's a direct reflection of where I'm at in my life.
David, there's a great book here you can use with your cat breakup.
Yeah. There's a subsection for that.
One of the other ones I had written down was, and Renee's going to appreciate this one. She'll probably have something to say. If our power was taken away, it was because we were seen as too powerful to begin with. I am going to put that on a sticky note on my freaking wall, because when I'm always saying, when somebody's trying to tear you down, it's because you took a step over them, a step higher, and they need you to come back down, because you either got to be below them or with them, right? There's no going higher with poor relationships, obviously toxic relationships. So that quote to me was like really powerful. If our power was taken away, it was because we were seen as too powerful to begin with. Where did you come up with that?
I think it's a kind of a spinoff of what you were saying. And just this really deep appreciation for the feminine wisdom and the way that big people don't make other people feel small.
Right.
That's just not, it's not a big person kind of quality. And similar to what you were saying, if people are trying to bring you down, it's only because you're above them, you know?
Mhm.
It's and that's something to be aware of, because that's also like an internal standard we can hold for ourselves is, and you'll see this a lot. I see it a lot as a coach, but people will engage with people at this level that's lower than them, and they'll be like, they're doing this thing, but then they'll stoop down to that level and like
Right.
engage with them in that space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas if you realize, like, oh, that's actually not where I'm at, I'm not going to engage with this, it disempowers that dynamic. So I think it's just stemmed from realizing and appreciating and learning to love the feminine within myself and in the outside world, because as I learn more about the divine feminine, as I call it, or as many people call it in the spiritual world, I see how intuitive and powerful and beautiful and chaotic and sometimes messy, but just like beautiful it is. And if we needed to be controlled, it then why? If we were weak, you don't need to control the weak. You control the powerful, because that way it keeps things safe for you. And so I think that really the thousands of years that we've been controlled as the feminine, I think is because we're seen as a threat. And if we're not controlled, then it compromises the safety and security of those who feel threatened by us.
Absolutely. And I love that quote, and Em knew I would, because I always tell people, when people come to me, like a strong, powerful woman, if she's feeling like a lot of people are ragging on her or bringing her down, and I'll always say, yeah, but if they're coming after you, it's because they feel you can take it and you're more powerful than them. They're searching for that homeostasis and that balance. And I can always prove it, because I would say to that person, how do you treat someone that you think is extremely weak, has nothing going for them? You feel bad for them. You don't like judge them. And then they always think about it and they go, oh yeah, like even the worst human being ever, if they see someone who has nothing going on, they just either ignore them or they're like, hey, things will get better. They're actually kind of
Right.
positive.
Well,
I
I always like to, when somebody's, listen, just because somebody's below you doesn't mean they don't have the same intellectual or emotional, or it just means they might not be as good at that thing you're doing at the moment. Right? So just because somebody's above me in the moment doesn't mean that they're like,
Mhm.
I'm dumb and I'm just
Mhm.
sitting here and I'm worthless. It
Yeah.
just means that whatever we're dealing with in that moment or in our lives, they're here and I'm here. But when my friend is down here, I'm like tossing a rope and I'm
Mhm.
trying to pull him up to, back to where we're
It's
here.
exactly, that is so true.
And if my friend's up here, I'm
Yeah.
like, you go, girl. Let
Every
me know what
time.
you're
Yeah.
doing. That's awesome.
That's how yeah.
I
I don't
think
know
that's
what's so hard about this, right? Like,
I think it's a testament to your own inner state. I think it
Mhm.
depends on how comfortable you are with
Yeah.
where you're at in life. Because, like, I think about, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and there's a lot of homelessness and there's a lot of drug use on the streets. Like, it's rough. And those people, I think people would say, are below them in many ways. And they
Mm.
have a hard time talking kindly about this demographic that is really struggling. Understandably, because there's a lot of chaos and crime that comes associated with it. There's a lot of stuff that we're exposed to, that children are exposed to. It's a very complex issue. But to the degree that we are comfortable with our own inner ugliness, I think is the degree to which we are comfortable with the world's ugliness. And that's more in the shadow work realm, being okay with the parts of ourselves that we don't like so much. Like, that's the red flags talk, or, the I'm a single woman in her 30s talk, like all of those things that might not be so comfortable for us. And it goes the opposite way as well. Like, to the degree that we can accept our fullness and our wholeness and our greatness, are we
Mm.
able to champion and support others? But if we have woundedness
Right.
around our value and our worthiness, then we will see someone else's winning as a threat, and we'll try to attack them to bring them down, so that way we feel like equals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
we also have people that, oh, sorry, Renee.
no,
We
go.
also have people that are like here with us, but emotionally they're way down here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you do, they will not do the work to get up here. They
Yeah.
would rather bring you down to them. They want you to be miserable with them. They cannot, it doesn't matter how hard you try. And at some point, which is how we came up with this theme for this season, was letting go. At some point, you have to let go because it becomes an anchor.
That's when you do the
And it's
breakup. That's
holding
when you do
you.
the breakup ritual,
Yeah.
and you spring yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Renee, I'm going to break up with you so we can have a celebration in like Cancun or
But
something.
then we'll get back together.
Then we'll
That's
get back
fun
together.
too. I like when
Once,
people break up and get back together. It's always
at
fun.
least once a year, we're going to break up, everybody.
Let's
Can I
do it.
officiate? Can I officiate the
do it.
breakup?
Yeah, I think it could be fun, because breaking up is easy to do. We could change the song and then say,
Yeah.
we are over time, but Tifanie,
Yeah.
you are a blessing. You are a gift. I want to have more shows with you and talk. Like, you're into so many different things, like naturopathy. I want to hear about Chinese medicine. I want to hear about divine feminine, more about the global feminine.
Yes.
So maybe
She
we
has
do a
some
part
great-
2 or something.
She has some great celebrity stories too.
Yeah,
Some
like
good
celebrity
ones,
stories. Yeah.
We'll have her back. We'll have her back.
Yeah, so let's definitely try that, Tifanie. If you will have us again, we would love to have you back. And how can people keep in touch with you and follow you until then so they can get their Tifanie fix?
Yeah. I would say go to beautifulwildwoman.com if you want to learn more about me and my philosophy and my approach to healing. I
Okay.
do have Instagram and TikTok. It's my first and last name at gmail.com. Sorry, I'm so just used to saying that. It's my first and last name, so at Tifanie Mayberry.
Right.
And you will be able to find me in both of those spaces. I won't be on there until April because I'm just stepping away from
break. That's right.
now.
We just did that here on Journeys. We took off at end of October and we didn't come back until February.
It's healing. It's really healing.
We need the break.
Excellent.
You
Okay,
too.
well, thank you to everyone for being so engaged. And we also want to greet the replay squad. And we will see everyone next week, right, Em?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Looking
Good
forward
night,
to it.
everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you.